Of the City of New Brunswick for July 23rd, 2018. We're ready to go, Madam Chair.
Okay, roll call.
Edwin Ascona, Charles McNair, Doug Sheehan,
Here.
Peg Chester,
Here.
John Zimmerman, Ivan Adorno, Indira Martyr,
Here.
Sue McElligott, John Cox,
Here.
Nancy Polo.
Here. Public announcement, Open Public Meetings Act.
Please be advised that the notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act complied with and satisfied the annual notice to give sufficient notice of the time, place, and conduct of all public meetings of the Board of Adjustment of the City of New Brunswick has been filed with the City Clerk in place of the appropriate bulletin board by the City Hall, 78 Byron Street, New Brunswick, New Jersey, and has been transmitted to the official newspapers of the City of New Brunswick and the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger.
Salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Minutes of the board's June 25th, 2018 meeting.
Madam Chair, members have received copies in their packets. Unless you have any changes, a motion to approve is in order.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are good.
Communications and reports, resolutions of memorialization. Gilbert Mercado Z-2017-15, site plan and variance application for the construction of a multi-family building located at 405-409 Livingston Avenue and 52 May Street, Block 340, lots 1.03, 3.02, and 5.01 zoning district, C-3A.
Madam Chair, members received copies of the resolution. Unless you have any changes, a motion to approve is in order.
Everyone but Ms. Martyr is eligible to vote on this one.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Doug Sheehan,
Yes.
Peg Chester,
Yes.
John Cox,
Yes.
Nancy Polo.
Yes. Old business, new Teterton Alumni Association of Phi Sigma Kappa Z-2017-21, site plan and variance application for the construction of a fraternity house located at 27 Stone Street, Block 75, Lot 14, zoning district IN-1.
Madam Chair, the applicant sent us a letter this afternoon requesting to postpone the hearing as they knew the board was not going to have a full complement under case law. The applicant has a right to have a full board to hear their D variance. So the application will not be heard tonight and will be rescheduled for the August 27th, 2018 meeting, which will be held here at City Hall Council Chambers at 7:30 p.m. This is the announcement to the public about that application. If you're interested, you can come back on the 27th. There'll be no other further notice required for the application.
Okay, thank you. New business, 150 Eastern Avenue LLC Z-2018-02, site plan and variance application for the construction of a mixed-use building to be located at 150 Eastern Avenue, Block 69, Lot 29, zoning district C-3B.
Good evening, Madam Chairperson, members of the board. Peter Lanfrit, 3000 Hadley Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. You have two applications on your agenda this evening. The same cast of characters will be involved in both applications, so I will try to get through these rather quickly. Also, my site engineer has not yet arrived. Hopefully, he will be here shortly to proffer this testimony regarding the site plan. This is an application. I want to give you a little bit of a history. Wherein the applicant purchased the property and in 2010 went to the planning board to receive approval to convert the existing residence to a restaurant and having an apartment on the second floor. The planning board approved that application And after the approval of the application, the building on the property was still in place. And then the applicant started to get into the building and find out that there were probably more issues with the building than were probably made sense to save the building, and started meeting with your township engineering and construction people. And as a result of those discussions, the applicant decided to demolish the building and come in to construct a new building. The application that we are here for this evening is to have a retail space on the first floor. That retail space will be a restaurant. The lower or the basement will be used in part for food preparation, and thus we have the use variance because once the basement became functional space, it applied to the FAR, and that created the variance that we are seeking. We're also proposing 2 apartments on the second and third floor, and also as part of the plan, there is an outdoor seating area for some outdoor dining when the weather permits it. The applicant is Mr. Baudor, who currently has a restaurant on Easton Avenue. He's had a restaurant for many years. This will be a spin-off of his existing restaurant. Basically, I will have him testify as to the hours of operation and also the intended use of the building. So if we can have him sworn first.
You know what, before you do that, is there anyone on the board that has any conflict with this application? Thank you.
Thank God.
Bill, if you raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last name for me, please.
I, Bilal Budor,
Can you spell your last name for me, please?
B-O-D-U-R.
And you swear to the whole truth in this matter?
Stay right there.
Okay.
Mr. Baudor, you're the owner of the property which is the subject of this application?
Yes.
Okay, and at the present time, do you own another restaurant in the city of New Brunswick?
Yes.
And what restaurant do you own?
Mediterranean, Effie's Mediterranean Grill,
Okay, and where is that located?
32 Easton Avenue.
Okay, and how long have you owned that?
18 years.
Okay, and now you're proposing on this property, as I indicated in my opening remarks, to construct a
Yeah.
new restaurant, use the basement for food preparation, and have 2 apartments above it, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Will that replace Effie's, or are you still going to keep Effie's?
Pretty much, I think it will replace Effie's.
So you're going to move your operation to that side?
Yes, someday, yeah.
Okay, and what are your hours of operation?
Where I am right now,
Yes,
11 to midnight.
okay. And if the application is approved, would you basically be operating at the same hours?
Yeah.
And also, you, in your application, indicate that you had some, or proposing some outdoor dining, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and in the previous approval of the planning board, you proposed, excuse me, you proposed outdoor dining also, did you not?
Yes.
And the board granted that approval,
Yes.
and then, however, restricted you to 10 p.m. and that nothing would happen after 10 p.m.
Yes.
And you would have no objection to that condition remaining on this application.
Yes.
Okay, now, with the restaurant that you are proposing, and with your current restaurant, who is your target market? Who are your primary customers?
Like student, hospital staff, and university staff.
Okay, and how much of your business is either eat-in, pickup, or delivery? Can you, what's your breakdown?
Mostly takeout and deliveries.
Most of your business is takeout and delivery. Okay, during the day, you do have people that come in for lunch?
Yes.
Okay, but even at lunchtime, most of your businesses,
No walk-ins.
excuse me?
Yeah.
They're walk-ins.
Yeah.
But most of your business during the day is actually deliveries?
Deliveries at.
Okay, and in the evening, the same thing, you have some walk-ins, but predominantly it's deliveries?
Some deliveries, yeah, mostly deliveries, but they're coming as well.
Okay, and do you have your own vehicle that does those deliveries?
Yes, it does.
Okay, and today with some of the other apps that are available on phone, do you also have people who have their food picked up for them and
I have
delivered?
apps too, yes, I do.
Okay, and in the new facility, how many seats approximately do you have in your existing building?
60.
Okay, and in the new building, there's approximately the same number?
Same number.
So you're basically trying to replicate what you have now in the new building?
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you, I have no further questions. Stay here, then, no questions.
Sorry.
No, thank you.
Ashraf.
Can you raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last name for me, please?
Ashraf Raghav, R-A-G-A-V.
G-A-B. And you swear to hold true in this matter?
Ashraf, what is your occupation
I'm a licensed architect
in the state of New Jersey?
in New York.
And where is your office located?
In Somerville, 2 Division Street.
Okay, and can you give the board very briefly the benefit of your educational and professional background?
I am a graduate of City College of New York with a Bachelor of Architecture in 1994. Licensed since 2001 in the state of New Jersey and principal of Emerald Design Studio since 2001.
I would offer the testimony of Ashraf as a professional engineer, Madam Chairman.
Yes, one of them.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, Ashraf, you were not
Architect, right?
architect. I'm sorry. Ashraf, you were not the engineer, architect on the original application.
No, I wasn't.
Okay, and when Mr. Baudor decided to recreate or reinvent the project, he retained your services, is that correct? Okay, and by the time you got there, was the existing building up or down? The old
It was
building?
in the process of being demolished.
Okay, and what we are proposing now is a brand-new building?
That's correct.
Okay, can you indicate to the board the size of the building and take the board through the building itself? Now, you're going to refer to an exhibit, which I believe is part of your plan set?
That's correct.
Okay, and,
Sheet A1. Sheet A01.
okay,
So the building is approximately 26 foot 7 3/8 by 64 foot 8 3/4. That's the total width and length of the building. It's a 3-story building with a full basement that will be an accessory use to the restaurant above.
okay, and so the basement is solely in relation to the restaurant?
That's correct.
Okay, and what is envisioned taking place in the basement?
It's food prep areas basically and storage of dry goods and such things.
Okay, now, the first floor has its entrance, I assume, on Easton Avenue?
Yes.
Okay,
The first floor has one entrance to the front and one entrance towards the rear yard.
for the outside dining
For
room?
the outside.
Okay, can you indicate how that portion of the building functions?
So the left side of the building is for the commercial space, which is the proposed restaurant. There's a small vestibule, and then you enter into a seating area that holds about 68 persons. And in the rear of the property, there's a full kitchen, a commercial kitchen, and 2 ADA compliant toilets for the customers. And some storage and mop or janitor's closet. There's a rear stair that goes down to the basement, and then an exit to the outdoor patio in the rear yard.
Okay. And then we indicated that there will be 2 apartments on the second and third floor,
That's correct.
and the apartments are identical, I assume?
More or less, yes.
All right, can you take the board through the apartments, please?
So the right side of the Eastern Avenue facade has a door that goes into a staircase that goes straight up to the second floor, where it's a 3-bedroom apartment, open area towards the front with a rather large balcony overlooking Eastern Avenue, living dining right off of the entrance, and then 1 common bathroom and 3 bedrooms in the back of the property.
Okay. And then the same scenario is in essence going to happen on the third floor?
Basically, the stair just keeps on going up to the third floor, and the door is shifted towards the back a little bit because there's just one staircase that keeps on going upstairs. So you enter into a hallway, but you make your way towards the front. Same setup, large living dining area with an open kitchen. The balcony over the second floor balcony is the exact same size, and 3 bedrooms also with 1 common bath.
Okay. And as a result of requests of the staff when we've had meetings, you have prepared some photographs of what the exterior of the building would look like?
Yes.
Okay, can we have them marked as A2, please?
Those were not part of the package, is that correct?
We did give you floor plans, but not colorized, so,
Why don't we mark that as 8?
Yeah, this is it.
I'm sorry. Okay. Can you indicate to the board in reviewing A1, basically the materials, the colors, and what the building would look like?
So the owner expressed his wish to have a contemporary facade overlooking Eastern Avenue. First rendering is of the rear yard patio with a small pergola above a set of columns, and it's just basically an outdoor eating area. The 3 renderings at the bottom are of the front facade. There's a stone clad balcony that's over the glass wall of the restaurant. Glass railings all across and at the roof also. There's some pieces of Spanish tile over the 2 entrances, the restaurant and the residential entrance, and also over the balcony on top. And there's some windows on the side to light up the stair hall and the living dining area. So there's going to be quite a bit of natural light into the units from the front, because most of the front facade is all glazed.
Okay, and there will be signage over the entrance to the restaurant?
That's correct.
And for the record, we will represent that the signage will conform with the sign requirements of the city of New Brunswick. We're not asking for any relief or variance for the signage. Okay, what are the materials at the side and the rear of the building?
The side and the rear, the side is just siding, vinyl siding, I believe, and the rear is also. So the front balcony that's extruded is all stone, front and sides, and the sides, the walkway from the right side is also stone clad with the vinyl on the second floor. The right side of the property is all vinyl siding all the way to the back, and the rear is also vinyl siding. The rear is vinyl siding.
Okay, and is there any lighting?
Actually, we changed that. I think the city had a problem with cement fiber right now. So it's hardy board siding.
Okay, and is there any lighting proposed on the building itself?
Yes, there's some floodlights that are based on the city requirements for the walkways and for the back patio area. There's lighting for the sign that will be most likely gooseneck light fixtures over the sign coming out of the base of the balcony. That's about it.
Okay, so it will not be an internally illuminated sign in the front?
No.
Okay. And the walkway you talk about is the walkway, there is a walkway so somebody can access the rear of the property along the walkway without having necessarily to go into the building, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Thank you, I have no further questions.
Does anyone have questions? Thank you.
There it is. Okay. I will try to use it.
Can you raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last name for me, please?
Sharif Ali, A-L-Y.
And
Sheriff.
tell the whole truth in this matter?
I do.
Madam Chair, I believe Mr. Ali's been before this board on a number of occasions. It's been a while, but his credentials were accepted as that of an engineer, expert field engineer.
Have your credentials changed since the last time you've been before this board?
No, it's not on my license.
So they will accept you as an expert witness.
Mr. Ali, you prepared the subject site plan, did you not?
Yes.
Okay, and your testimony tonight will be based on the site plan set that was submitted in conjunction with this application?
Yes.
Okay, and this is, I believe, at least our third or fourth revision that the board is looking at, is that not correct?
That is correct.
Okay, we've had numerous meetings with township staff, have heard their comments when we met, and what the board is seeing tonight is basically the fourth go-around, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can you describe the subject property?
Sure. So for the record, this is lot 29 in block 69, and that shows on tax map, the city tax map sheet number 5. We know it as 150 Eastern Avenue, 3,200 square feet, that's the lot size, 32 feet in width and 100 feet in depth. And it's located in the C 3B zone. That's the community commercial. It's a mixed zone between commercial and office. There is a zoning requirement as far as that. We have 5,000 square feet, and the zone is required. The lot, as indicated, 3,200. And that's basically the 5,000 is 5,500, while we have 3,200. So there's a number of bulk variances that exist. One of the lot area as well as the lot width. And we have also new variances that we'll be seeking as far as this building. This building, as indicated before, and I heard some of the testimony, three-story, 1,715 square feet. That's the footprint for the building. An outdoor area, as was described before, as well as in the back area, all the way to the back in the corner there, we have trash enclosure with building walls that will be matching the building, and that will be curb pickup, and that will be by the city. So as far as the, there is sewer, water, gas, everything's in Eastern Avenue. Most of the utilities that was going to the original building that will be removed or abandoned, most likely removed, and replaced by new utilities, sewer, water, gas, electric. And that was a requirement we set, and we fully did compliance with that. As far as the zoning, some of the zoning requirement that will be required, as far as the front yard is required, is 15 feet. We have half a foot, a little bit more than half a foot, 0.5 to. As far as the setbacks that is required, one side is 5, total is 10, and we have on one side 4.39, and one side is 1 foot. 4.39 and 1 foot on the other side, so total combined is 5.39, and that will require another variance. So the front yard is a variance, the side setbacks, both of them are in violation and require variance. There is also a variance that we require for the building coverage. We have 50% building coverage, but what's required is 50%. We have 53.6%, so a little bit over that was required. As far as the impervious coverage, we read the full lot, 90%, and we comply with that. So that's one good thing, and we're complying with that. And as far as the floor area ratio between the basement, the first floor, the second floor, and the third floor, what's required 1.2. We a little bit over that by 0.37, so that will be provided is 1.57. So what's required 1.2, and what's provided 1.57.
Before we talk about the rest of the site, can you indicate to the board what is on either side of the subject property? Are those lots fully developed, and is there any land available for the applicant to acquire to make this lot conforming or try to eliminate those variances?
Yeah, to the right and the left, the fully developed, as you see on, if you travel on Eastern Avenue, there's nothing there. That is vacant, so it's fully developed, and I believe that will be a part of our plan testimony.
Right. Now,
requiring additional things.
okay, now operationally, with respect to the property, Mr. Ashraf indicated that there's access to the basement within the building. Is there also an access to the basement from the street level?
Yes,
And that's through a door?
through a local door that will be within the county right away, and I believe that is already been approved by the county.
Okay, that was submitted to the county and has been approved.
That is correct.
Okay, and as we indicated in the prior testimony, there is access to the building on Easton Avenue. There's also a door going out to the back.
That is correct.
Now, can you describe the outdoor seating area and what we did to make that, as requested by the staff, something that's just not a bunch of chairs out there, but something rather attractive?
Yeah, so we have a side yard along the left side of the building that is about 4 feet wide, 4.39, so we call it 4. So if you're coming from Easton Avenue, if you're going through the building, obviously there's a door that leads you to the outdoor, but if you're coming from the outside, from Easton Avenue, walk area there, so you're proceeding up to the rear area, that's all, it's going to be made out of print papers. And print paper coming into the outdoor area. So the outdoor area, I believe is for 14 customers, about 7 tables. And the beside the outdoor area, there will be screening of the outdoor area with some evergreen all the way around the outdoor area.
Are we proposing any fencing on the property?
Yes, in addition to that, there, I believe, a fence that will be with the screening. Beside that, there's already existing fence in there.
Okay. And can you indicate to the board where the trash will be contained and how it will be contained?
So the trash, we have a separation with 2 doors to the trash area. That will be the area all the way in the back. So that will be the left back area of the property, and the walls for the trash enclosure will be matching the building as they indicated. The first door will be to 2 containers, one recycling, one the garbage, and that will be for the apartment. And the second door will be 3 garbage cans, as well as 2 recycling, and that will be for the restroom.
So we are going to segregate the residential garbage from the commercial garbage?
That is correct.
Okay, and as far as the commercial garbage, that would go out the back door and into the trash enclosure area for the
Yes.
commercial? The residential would have to come out the front door, then go down the side and bring their garbage to the back of the property?
Yes.
Okay. Now, there have been some reports that have been generated in conjunction with this application. Specifically, there is a report from Bignell Planning Consultants dated July 18th, 2018. Have you had an opportunity to review that report?
Yes.
Okay, and there were some plan review comments. I just want to spend a moment going over those. We are not proposing any loading area, is that correct?
That is correct.
Is there an opportunity on Easton Avenue to provide for loading or unloading?
Well, that's the usual out there. That's where you load and unload in front of the stores out there.
Okay. I think everything else. The only thing, Todd, you may want to, Hank made a comment that we shall revise the facade to be more in keeping with the character of the Easton Avenue neighborhood. I really don't know what Hank meant by that, perhaps you do. And, I just don't want to, I would perhaps want your input as to what you're looking for.
Madam Chair, I think the gist of that comment was just to make sure that the board members are comfortable with the facade. There are some facade design directions in the zoning ordinance. And this particular design is a little bit not in keeping with the general flavor of what those facade requirements call for. So most important part is just to make sure that the board members take a very close look at the facade with the glass and the sort of, I think it's safe to call it a modern sort of design, sort of, not in keeping with some of the other buildings that are out there. So the important part is just to make sure you're comfortable with it, that it fits well, that it works well in the sort of, in the tempo of other buildings that are out there.
I think all of the other.
It's an eclectic streetscape, I'll put it that way.
So maybe the picture that they had, if they could show that up close to us, since it was very difficult for us to see it from afar.
It's a modern style building. Just looking at the street view pictures, it's difficult to put a particular architectural style to the buildings out there. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Diesel and Duke store across the street with the Cadillac sticking out of the roof. I don't know what style you call that. Car crash. 66.
Sharif, other than that, all the other comments and requests, either we have already addressed or are willing to address, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and Mr. Carley, DNR Engineering submitted a report dated Friday, July 20th, 2018. And I think actually Mr. Carley has done a good job of summarizing where we've been and where we're going. You've reviewed his report and any of the comments that have been contained therein. We have a problem with complying with those comments?
Not at all.
Okay. And in complying with those comments, do any of those comments, if you make those changes, would they materially affect the plan that the board is looking at and reviewing this evening?
No. Some of the requests that will be required for construction, and some of the requests will be the typical pressure flow on the existing hydrant, and as far as TV the existing sewer line, and meter the existing sewer line.
Okay.
And we are willing to do that.
Thank you. I have no further questions of this witness.
Does anyone have any questions?
Is the space right in front of the building, is it already declared a loading zone? Or is it regular parking spaces?
It's a regular parking space.
So where are the trucks going to unload and load? Where's the nearest loading zone to this building?
Great question.
There's a triangle there.
There's a triangle there, it's empty street, there's
It's
no,
loaded up because during the school year, that thing's packed and it's closed off.
no, the corner is always open, because it's a loading zone, they can only park.
You can't park it on there.
Wait a minute,
So real quick, I don't believe he was sworn in. The gentleman wasn't sworn in, so if we could maybe have him identified and have
Or
him sworn in.
let Bilal answer the question. Or you want, I'll swear him in.
Can you raise your right hand and state your name, spell your last name, please?
So Ekrem Bodur, B-O-D-U-R,
And you swear to uphold truth in this matter?
yes I do.
Okay, and you're the applicant's brother, and you're also principal in this
Yes.
project? Okay, and are you familiar with the loading zones in that area?
Yeah, that area, there's a triangle over there also, there's, people getting unloaded. Some of the across the street, the pizza store, there's 2 pizza stores, and before there was a grocery store, I don't know what is it right now, they closed
Okay.
it down. And there's another pizza store also over there. I mean, most of the time, I don't see cars there, it's a loading zone, they can stay there, so I don't know.
And you're in the business, usually when you have a delivery, it's you don't get deliveries by tractor trailers, they're either
No.
vans or
No.
box trucks, correct?
No, it's a van, small vans.
Okay, and when they come to drop something off, how long are they normally there?
Just 5-10 minutes, we just unload it, we have to,
Okay, and you get, for example, a produce delivery every single day, or do you get it every couple of days a week?
maybe.
Twice a week.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I'll just offer, just from looking at a street view picture, one, there's a big tractor trailer across the street from this site. It looks like it's delivering to the other restaurants there. But There is a marked loading zone up the street that is just past Huey's nightclub, essentially from the driveway of Huey's up to the where the Thai restaurant is on the corner of Bristol. So that's a loading zone there. That's, I'm guessing, 125 feet from this site. I don't know if there's another one designated up there, but in a quick review, I do see that one, which is in a not, it's not real far from the proposed site. I would say, 100, 150 feet, something like that. There is some sort of a Roma food trailer parked right across the street from the site, delivering when the Google car went by. In this area, there are a lot of restaurants, as Diesel will do before, Sahara's, PJ's, Huey's, the Thai restaurant. There's a lot of restaurants up there. They're all using whatever is up there. It's an urban area. None of them have separate designated loading zones up there. I don't know that this would be all that different.
Thank you.
I have nothing further.
That's it, thank you.
So I don't know what is this to ask on it, but at the TAC we had talked about the trash and how it was getting out to the curb, how that was going to be picked up and handled. We talked about the residences going back, walking out the front, going around the back, putting in the trash there. Who gets the trash up to the front? How's that all going to go?
That's done by the applicant who will be running the business. He'll take care of it. And what we've been able to ascertain, the city will be picking up the trash on Easton Avenue.
Every day, except Sunday.
And it's going to be done out daily except for Sundays.
Is that daily for the residents and the restaurant, or just the restaurant?
No, and
I believe it's for Easton Avenue, regardless of whether.
Yeah, I think we had that discussion at the TAC,
Yeah.
and it was discussed that it's 6 days a week for commercial pickup,
Okay.
but I think it's twice a week as the rest of the residents in New Brunswick get for residential
Okay.
trash.
And
If they're bringing out the trash, I don't know how the garbage man's going to distinguish. They're certainly not going to go pick through it and see what's.
well, we're gonna have separate containers and that's why we did it on purpose. We have a separate area for the commercial and a separate area for the residential garbage.
And what about?
I don't know how the garbage man's going to distinguish between them.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's two, 3-bedroom apartments. It's not a huge
What
amount.
about recycling in that?
Again, we will make arrangements for the recycling pickup. We do have segregated recycling containers, and that will be handled either through local or we'll handle it ourselves, but we will make sure all the recycling's taken care of.
What does handle it yourself mean for
Well,
recycling?
if the county is...
Because everybody else in town gets picked up by the county.
Yeah, and I would assume we would be too. That's what I'm saying.
Correct. Yeah, recycling is only every other week, that's the rest.
No, once a week.
For commercial?
Commercial. Commercial's once a week.
Okay.
We show it Tuesday.
Thank you.
My next witness is Ms. Dolan.
Can you raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last name, please?
Elizabeth Dolan, D-O-L-A-N.
And you swear to the truth in this matter?
Yes, I do.
So I believe, Ms. Dolan, you've been before this board.
Just within the last month or so, yes.
And nothing has changed since then.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll accept you as an
Thank
expert
you.
witness.
Ms. Dolan, you heard the testimony of our professionals that we are proposing a mixed-use building with a commercial component on the first floor, specifically a restaurant, and 2 apartments on the second floor. And you're familiar with the ordinance of the City of New Brunswick?
Yes.
And based on what we are proposing, are there parking requirements in the City of New Brunswick that we should be meeting?
There are parking requirements that we are not meeting. A total of 23 spaces are required with the combination of the ordinance for the restaurant and RSIS for the apartments.
Okay, and you're familiar where the subject property is located, and also you're familiar with Easton Avenue and the general streetscape and land uses on
Yes.
Easton Avenue?
Yes.
And can you describe the subject area and what's out there at the present time?
Certainly. I think in the introduction, it was explained that site has historically been residential, so the residential component is being maintained. We're adding the restaurant, and that's pretty typical of what's along the stretch of Easton Avenue. A lot of eating establishments, a lot of apartments to really cater to the Rutgers community. And 30 years ago, I was part of that. I can't believe it's still there. The nightclub and so forth, a lot of eateries, and so this would be one more restaurant and 2 new apartments to cater to that community.
Okay, and as is typical of Easton Avenue, most of the restaurants don't have parking, is that correct?
That's correct. They don't have parking. It is a downtown urban setting. There's a high amount of foot traffic, so there's pedestrians, and I think our applicant had testified he's got a lot of walk-in customers and also provides delivery, and so there's a nominal amount of vehicular traffic generated by these types of uses.
Okay, and the only parking in the immediate vicinity of these, not only this restaurant, but the other restaurants, is street parking?
It's street parking, so you either walk, or if you're lucky, you get a spot nearby, or you may circle the block until you find a spot that's in reasonable walking distance for the individual driver.
And based on your experience, and I'm sure you've not only reviewed applications in this city, you've done other applications in other urban settings, this is a fairly typical functional use of a small piece of property in an urban setting, is that correct?
Definitely typical, with first floor retail or restaurant space and then the residential above.
Okay, and basically the customer or the clientele, based on your experience, knows that if they're coming to this facility, most of them will walk, and if they need to drive, they will have to find parking, and people understand that.
That's what I said a few minutes ago, that it's likely that they'll be walking, and if they can't find a spot and they have to drive, then they know they're going to be looking for a spot that's not right in front of the building.
Okay, and by and large, is there any significant trip generations for these types of uses?
No, we looked at some of the data from the Institute of Transportation Engineers for more urban settings. We came up with about 20 trips, and I would note that the county did not require a traffic study, and that is Route 527, it's county jurisdiction. 20 trips is well below the threshold that typically warrants a traffic study. If you're over 100 trips in an hour, that's when it's appropriate to look at the trip generation, what it may do to the area. But we're looking at a handful of trips during peak hours.
So in reality, the lack of parking, if anything, the only negative impact it really has is on the applicant himself if customers can't park and get to his restaurant.
Right, it promotes pedestrian trips and discourages to a certain amount the vehicular trips.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to comment for a little clarification, because I guess Billy testified earlier in the presentation that most of the customer base is takeout and delivery, but there are 68 seats here. That's a fair amount of people for going in there, so need a little clarification on that.
And he indicated similar in size to what,
Like on the weekend and stuff, it's gonna be,
go ahead, come up.
it's gonna, the weekend is gonna be more people coming in dining. That's what's I'm shooting for, weekends.
That we tend to think you might get a few more car trips, and with his existing restaurant, it's right across the street from a parking deck.
Right.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing up here, but I just wanted to clarify. I mean, 68 seats is more than you would find at the Thai restaurant there, Diesel and Duke. It's a little more closer to the size of Sahara.
I think Sahara has a few more seats than
Yeah, I think
68.
it probably has a few more.
Yeah, but again, it's his hope that, again, people,
Yeah, I just want the board to understand like where this kind of fits in, that
Right.
it's, this is not Diesel and Duke
No.
takeout and 4 seats.
No.
It may not be the size of Sahara, but it's not just takeout with
yeah,
68 seats.
and basically his thought process in discussing this, I mean, he has an existing restaurant, he knows his market, and he feels that he wants to try to encourage a little bit more of the sit-down.
And more parties and stuff, that's what's, like, Johnson, that they walk around, they come, that's what I'm aiming at. Those are the people that come in for the parties and office parties, and that's what's they're gathering. mostly from the local areas.
When you're doing an office party, that sounds like people are gonna be driving. I mean, right now, Effie's, you're right across the street from the hospital, block from Rutgers. Here
He's-
you're a little farther.
He's still close to Rutgers, and he's actually closer to St. Peter's Hospital now than he is to Robert Wood Johnson, but he's got a hospital another
I don't think
block.
he can get any closer to Robert Wood Johnson than he is now at
Right,
Effie's.
I get that. I mean,
I'm just trying to provide context for the board.
yeah, I understand, Ron.
But I can understand what you're saying, because if they're expecting they're gonna be bringing in more sit-down people with the outside terrace, you're not just looking at 68, you're looking at the potential of another 6 or 8. Is that, how many did you say for the outside?
Total of about 14.
All right, so then you're,
Yeah. So on their behalf, that's primarily in the warmer months,
Yeah.
except for May, September, school's not around. I mean, it's kind of a ghost town up there now.
Yeah.
And usually, I mean, if you have 68 inside, you know, when the weather gets nice, they're going to gravitate, and he should be so lucky to fill all 68 inside while people are dining outside. So I don't think you can say that, you know, if he has 82 people on a given night, then he's hit a home run, but that's not what typically happens, and especially in the summertime when most of the students are gone.
on another track, what was the occupancy, the total occupancy for both of the upstairs units?
They are 3 bedrooms.
3 bedroom each.
And I think there were 2 occupants per bedroom. Yes, 6 per unit. Nothing further, I would like to call Mr. O'Brien.
Kevin, raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last name for me, please.
Kevin O'Brien, O-B-R-I-E-N.
And you swear to hold this matter?
I do.
So, Mr. O'Brien, you were here not that long ago. Has anything, I just let us know, right?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Has-
Always a
has it-
pleasure.
Has anything changed since you've been here?
My license is still intact.
Okay, so we'll accept you as an extra.
Thank you so much. Mr. Lanford.
Mr. O'Brien,
Are we still doing the bike racks?
you can mention.
Okay.
Sorry. You are familiar with the application that is before the board this evening?
Yes.
Okay, and you are familiar with the zoning ordinance of the city of New Brunswick, the master plan of the city of New Brunswick, and also have visited the area where the building is going to be proposed, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and can you indicate why we are before the zoning board this evening, since I indicated to the board that the previous application went to the planning board?
Yes, it did. We're here because we need an FAR floor area ratio variance. By adding the headroom to the basement so that it could be part of the prep area for the kitchen for the restaurant, we have expanded our floor area ratio, and that's one of the primary reasons we're here. We also need a number of bulk variances. But the restaurant and the 2 3-bedroom apartments are an allowed use in this C3B zone.
Okay, and are there any unique aspects to this application?
Yes. The 1920s or so building that was originally on this site has been torn down recently, and a completely modern building, modern in construction, in meeting all the codes, meeting safety, energy efficiency, as well as a modern-looking building, is going to be built at this location. The neighborhood consists of a number of non-conforming properties. Along Easton Avenue, there are 13 properties on this block, and 3 of them are conforming. So 77% of the properties on this block on Easton are not conforming. Only 3 of them have the 5,000 square feet. So this is a neighborhood, it was called eclectic. That's certainly a good word for it. Non-conforming is another one from a planning perspective. So this is not out of character with this particular neighborhood. The proposed renters are going to be college students, like most of the buildings in this particular area. They're going to have convenient access to the school, as well as city amenities. This particular home is less than 500 feet from the campus, and is near St. Peter's and the train station and the hospital in downtown. Leases amongst the students will specify that no parking is being provided. We anticipate that some of the students are going to have bicycles, and in our meetings prior to this, the applicant agreed to put a bicycle rack in the front of the property for patrons of the restaurant and one in the back for students who are living upstairs, and that would be a secured area. Restaurants in this area of New Brunswick typically cater to folks who primarily walk, folks who work in the area, students, people from the neighborhood. But the restaurant business has evolved over the last several years, given Uber, Lyft, Google apps, iPhone apps. As Mr. Baudur has pointed out, a large portion of his business is now takeout, pre-ordering, people picking up, people delivering. And he has said that at his current location of 32 Easton, that up to 50% of his business on a typical evening can be takeout, delivery, pre-ordering, which means that people aren't even there. Now, he's talked about the 68 seats at this particular location, and as has been pointed out, this time of year, there's not a lot going on in the neighborhood. On weekends, which are his primary target, during the rest of the year, there's not an awful lot going on. Most of the students are still there, but enough of them go back, catch the train, go back home, do something else. So there is elasticity in this particular neighborhood. The FAR variance concerning the basement, an FAR variance talks about the mass and bulk of a building and how it looks in a neighborhood. In this case, the change in FAR that triggers this is raising the basement height so that it can be used for the restaurant itself. The basement is going to be below the surface. It's not going to be seen. So if there are no FAR variants involved, this building would look pretty much the same as it does today.
Mr. O'Brien, does the city's master plan provide any guidance for the board in making their decision?
There are a number of passages, and I will briefly quote from them. Goals on page 13 states provision of unique, attractive, and high-quality residential areas that attract new residents with a wide range of housing and lifestyle choices. Goal number 3, increased residential land usage through infill, add housing densities and types appropriate to the character of existing neighborhoods. And then when one goes to specific changes that are recommended, page 57, there's a statement there should be a variety of housing choices that address neighborhood housing needs. And then lastly, on page 58, create mixed-use residential neighborhoods that provide convenient, functional, and attractive housing at a variety of price points. And this application meets those goals by providing this type of housing in a convenient, functional, and attractive building in a neighborhood that is located near schools, employment, and services.
Mr. O'Brien, does the municipal land use law support this application?
Yes, it does. There are a number of passages, starting with A for alpha, to encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Item B, to secure safety. Item G, to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations. And item I, to promote a desirable visual environment. And I believe this application is consistent with those passages by providing a safer mixed-use building in a mixed-use neighborhood convenient to the campus, to hospital, transportation, and city amenities.
Do you see any negative impacts should the board grant the variances that we are seeking?
I can't identify any negative impact. There was a much older building that was here that was torn down. As the board knows, there was a planning board approval on this application without the FAR, of course. This is not significantly different from that, so I don't see a negative impact upon surrounding properties of the city.
Okay, and as we indicated in the opening, we are seeking a D4 and also certain bulk variances that were enumerated by our engineer. Have you reached a conclusion regarding what we are seeking before the board this evening on this application.
Yes, the land use handbook, which is cited as New Jersey Zoning and Land Use Administration, our good counselor has a copy on his table there, talks about how to deal with FAR variances because they're D4, they're not a D1. The D1 is to put that gas station in the middle of a residential neighborhood. The D4 for floor area ratio, Mr. Cox in his tome says, quote, "The applicant for a D4 variance must show that the site will accommodate the problems associated with a floor area larger than that permitted by the ordinance." Doesn't have to go through the entire burden of proof that you would expect from a D1, a use that is non-conforming. But instead, we're instructed to take a look at this property, the building, and how this property deals with the problems that are associated with that building. And in this case, we have a substandard lot, we have a substandard neighborhood that is called eclectic. This is not out of character with that area. It's not out of character with the other buildings that are there. So I believe that this site can accommodate the problems that are caused by the FAR variance because those problems are de minimis. It's that basement height which cannot even be seen. In addition to that, any use variance has got to show you that there are unique characteristics to the application, which I've listed, that it can be reconciled with the municipal land use law, and I believe that we have done that by citing a number of passages from the land use law and those goals that are supported. Plus, it has to be reconciled with the master plan, which discusses attracting new residents with a wide range of housing and lifestyle and increasing residential land usage through infill. And based upon the passages and the proofs, I believe that the bulk variances can be granted under both a C1 hardship because of the size and shape of this substandard lot, as well as a C2 because the benefits of granting this application outweigh the detriments. It meets the negative criteria, and I would conclude to the board that I believe the application can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantial impairment of the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. I would welcome any questions.
I have some concern about the front yard setback. With it being that close to the sidewalk and the street, having two balconies there, and the safety of residents walking beyond it. We're talking about college kids who may not be thinking when, they're standing on the edge of the balcony and they drop something over, or they leave something on the balcony and in the rainstorm it gets washed over onto somebody on the sidewalk. Has there been any consideration of having the balconies in the rear of the building where they would be overlooking a beautiful terrace, treed area, and would not be overlooking cars and trucks and sidewalk?
I don't think we considered it, but we can obviously talk about it as an option, or perhaps even eliminating the balconies on the front if that's a concern. But we can have a brief discussion on that.
I don't know if I've had too many problems with like those kinds of things. I mean, anything can happen, but I know there's a lot of apocryphal stories about students throwing sofas off of roofs and things like that. But I don't know that's that different than having a porch that extends out and so forth. And usually they're not throwing things off it. I understand the concern. I'm trying to think if there's any other place similar like that on Easton Avenue or someplace like that. Nothing's coming to mind, but
94 Easton Avenue?
where?
94?
I can't remember which one that is off the top of my head.
And the other thing that we did discuss when we had meetings with staff that Mr. Krug recommended, we did raise the level of that balcony to a higher level than normal, again, for safety reasons and to basically make sure everything that students do is contained. Can we guarantee?
Like a solid,
in a solid
panel? So,
It's a solid panel, so there's nothing that can go through.
Yeah, if you,
Well, it does look like two panels.
Yeah, but
With an opening between them.
Excuse me?
It did look like 2 panels held together in the middle.
Right, but it's solid all the way across. There's no, in other words, nothing can go through the panels. We can ensure that if there's a slight opening there, I'm sure that can be taken care of, but there's really nothing that can go through the panels, and that was a recommendation of staff.
It's glass, it's solid glass panels.
How big is the gap at the bottom?
And cannot exceed 4 inches, so it's less than 4 inches. By code.
By code, it has to
But
be.
it's sort of about
Therefore, like less than 4 inches. So at 4 inch sphere, cannot
So 4
pass through.
inches, a water bottle or a soda can to go out.
But I believe in these types of balconies, we are providing a curb at the bottom, so it's not flat to the floor of the balcony. We have to look at the water drainage from the balcony, but we do have a curb around so that the floor is not just seeping to the outside. The
Yeah,
question,
I think if I were living there, I would prefer to see a terrace and have a little bit more quiet when I sit out on my balcony, you know, but I don't know how that would be reconfigured in the front. You know, you just have a solid concrete wall, basically, so aesthetically it probably would work well.
it's not just that, the balcony is an integral part of the interior design of the unit, so the living, dining, and kitchen are all open spaces looking into the balcony. So if I move the balcony to the back, I'll probably just have to rotate the whole unit. So the bedrooms will be in the front on Eastern Avenue, and the living and kitchen spaces will be in the back, which I don't know if that's an ideal layout.
You expressed that you would consider setting the building back another couple of feet. I mean, is that possible? You're going to create another variance there? Or?
I don't think we would create a cover, the building would be the building.
I don't know how you set the balcony back unless you set the building back.
The balcony
The
is,
balcony is set back slightly, so the roof falls, I mean, the second floor balcony is on top of the restaurant. It's not extruded anything into it.
But would there be a detriment to the terrace eating area for the 14 people that will meet there a few months out of the year if you set the building back and took from that space?
If they do that, they're probably just going to, expand the concrete in the front, to have a wider sidewalk. So
you're picking up impervious coverage.
yeah, you
And
don't have impervious coverage. It's someone
building
building along there.
lot
It's going
coverage.
to seem a sidewalk. They're not going to be. They're not going to plant 2 feet of grass or something like that up there. So if a water bottle or a beer can or something like that's coming out, it's probably still going to fall on their head.
Can I ask, actually, you guys mentioned that they put bike racks in the front to accommodate pedestrian traffic. Does that still allow for enough space between, pedestrian traffic and the restaurant?
We could put a small bike rack in the front, and we also looked at putting a small.
We're highly encouraging them to put a bike rack out there. There's bikes up there. They're getting locked up to, the signs that had, say, no parking or loading zone, things like that. It's something we really want to encourage them to have, is a
But
bike
it
rack.
doesn't show on the picture, so in front, you mean in front of that big window or on the side walkways? Where is in front?
We probably put it in front of the big, we can't put it in front of the doors, obviously, and we can't put it in front of the walkway, so it would have to be in front of the big
Put
window.
it up by the curb.
Or put it outside the
Just like
curb.
you have on George Street.
Yeah.
We have them all over down there.
By the curb.
Anything else? Okay.
Madam Chair, just a quick question, if I may.
Sure.
So Mr. Lanford, just in looking at the architectural layout of the floor plan, there was some testimony that quite a bit of the business is for takeout and order pickup business. Was there any consideration to putting some sort of takeout counter or waiting area or some sort of takeout space in that floor plan? Because right now with the 66 seats in there, there's really no waiting or takeout or sort of pickup counter in there.
One answer to that is that they have a van that makes deliveries, and that's a substantial part of it, but The rest of it I'll have to leave to our architect.
There was a server counter right over there.
So, right off of the entrance, there is a small server counter where people have to wait to be seated. So that counter could be used as a takeout counter for people who are coming in to pick up food.
And quite frankly, if it appears that there is an issue, that people are coming in and they have to wait to pick up food, we can always remove a couple of the seats and put some seating in there for pickup. If that, we can always alter the interior to make that more practical if it becomes necessary. Just like anything, you sort of have a game plan going in, but as you start operating your business, sometimes things have to change a little bit. But we would not be increasing the seating. If anything, we would be decreasing seating if we need to have an area for pickup people to wait.
I think, Madam Chair, they might have to eventually make some sort of modification because, if those pickup customers are waiting there, it's a log jam at the front door.
That concludes my presentation. As the board is aware, there's only 5 members here this evening. We have to open up to the public, but after the public, if there is any public that needs to speak on this, I would like 5 minutes to determine whether I would like to call for a vote this evening or ask that the vote be postponed to another meeting when you have 7 members.
Did you want to ask
Yeah,
something?
couple questions I have still. One is, I know this isn't a parking permit area, Easton Avenue is not, but are they entitled to any parking permits for the side streets right by them? Do you know?
It's on Easton Avenue, so I don't believe they should be. You
I-
only get the parking permits if you're fronting on a permit area.
Another one is the exhaust hood for the kitchen, is it on the interior or exterior of the building? Interior.
Okay. All right, at this time, we'll open it up for the public. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this application? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting.
May I have 5 minutes to discuss with my client whether, before I sum up, whether we want to go to a vote this evening or defer it?
Yes.
Thank you.
No.
I think we shut it off.
Okay. You can always turn it back on.
Yeah, balance clause. The balance. The bottom.
50 years old.
Yeah, done with this.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to spend a few minutes with my client. We would like the board to defer the vote in this matter. I can either sum up now or I can sum up when the matter is rescheduled and the other members are here. That's up to you, Madam Chairperson.
I believe that you sent it to me, correct?
Yeah, we sent an audio to the members who are on it.
Right, so you might as well finish.
Okay,
correct?
I will-
Be on the tape.
I will try to be very brief because I think in this case my professionals laid the picture out pretty clearly to you. As I stated in my opening, we did meet many times with your staff to try to come up with the plan. There were a lot of concerns. I think most of the concerns were addressed, and if I've been here on many occasions, and quite frankly, if you review the reports in this application, the comments are fairly minimal as tonight because we had previous reports that were rather extensive with which we dealt. I think that the use, we have an existing restaurant who's trying to upgrade. He's been in town. He's been in town for 18 years, and he's looking to have a new establishment. I think that's saying something about the stability of the client, the stability of his business. Maybe a 68-seat restaurant for a fledgling business may be somewhat problematic, but I think Mr. Baudour knows his customers, knows the community, knows his clients, and I think the restaurant will fit in well there. I think the FAR variance, which is the major variance that we are seeking, was adequately and clearly addressed by Mr. O'Brien, and I think the board And I would hope the board would grant the FAR variance as well as all of the bulk variances that were necessitated by the size of the lot. I thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll just move on to the next application.
We need to carry this to a date, don't we?
Yeah, it would be the August 27th, 2018 meeting.
Okay, so that's when it will take place.
Correct.
Okay, so we carry to
Assuming
August.
we have 7 people, I guess, to
Yeah, and I'll touch base with you before then. If you don't have 7, obviously, we'll carry it to September. But hopefully, by August, you'll have 7 people.
I hope so too.
Okay, and if you need an extension of time for the record, I'm hereby granting an extension of time, and I'll grant it through September 30th for the board to act in this matter in case we don't get back here in August. Do you need that in writing, Marvin, or is
No, that's fine.
sufficient on the record?
Thank you. All right, so we'll move to the next application. So the next application is 268 Somerset Street, LLC Z-2018-06, site plan and variance application for the construction of a mixed-use building located at 268 Somerset Street, Block 97, Lot 27, zoning district C-1.
Good evening, Chairperson, members of the board. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. As I indicated earlier, this is a substantially similar application to the one you just heard, but there are some differences. We're dealing with a little bit of a different neighborhood, a little bit of a different parking situation. Also, this site has, as part of our application, we're proposing to provide on-site parking for the residents because of the location of this property. So while it is somewhat similar in that it will be a single-story building for the commercial use in 2 stories, and Mr. Carley caught the discrepancy. There was a discrepancy in the engineering report where it says 4 stories, but then it defines 3 stories. This is a 3-story building, similar to the other building that we just presented testimony to. My professionals will be the same, so I'm going to really bore you for the next half hour, but I am not going to call my client in order to try to save time. I can tell you that with respect to this building, the proposal is for the first floor to be a restaurant, primarily more of a takeout restaurant. As you can see in the plan, and you'll hear there's only about 8 or 10 seats. And it is not going to be operated by my client. Right now, it's his intent to find a user to operate that restaurant. So we don't know whether it's going to be a pizza parlor and another Mediterranean restaurant or something else. It's a spec site for a restaurant. It's going to be designed for a restaurant, but we do not have a user for that building. And the upper 2 floors will be apartments. And with that background, I will call Ashraf again.
So before he begins, is there anyone on the board that has a conflict with this application? All right, thank you.
Can you raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last name again for me, please?
Ashraf Ragab, R-A-G-A-B.
And you swear to the whole truth in this matter?
I do.
And you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey.
I will accept him as an expert witness since he just testified.
Okay. All right. Ashraf, can you again take the board through what we are proposing on this site?
It's a very similar application, slightly a smaller building. It's a smaller site, so it's about 22 by close to 54 foot, 53 foot 11 to be exact, rectangular building. Again, there is a basement, unfinished basement with a utility room, and the first floor is also a restaurant, much smaller seating capacity, a total of 15 persons, maximum occupancy of the restaurant. There's a seating area in the back. This is a corner property, which is different from the other projects. So there are windows on both sides of the restaurants, facing Somerset Street and James Street. And The rear of the building has one toilet that's ADA compliant, a full commercial kitchen with a serving counter opening into the kitchen to serve the takeout or the seating, and a small butler's pantry and a stair that goes down to the basement. There is a rear access to the parking lot in the back for, I believe, for loading. The entrance to the right side goes straight up to the apartments. There are two apartments, one on the second floor, one on the third floor. Both are 2 stories. Open layout towards the front at the corner. So kitchen, living, dining in the front, and 2 bedrooms with 1 shared bathroom towards the back. Each apartment has a laundry room and a utility closet, so the utilities will be included in the apartments.
Okay, and unlike the other restaurant, which is more of a sit-down type restaurant with a counter that you have, it's anticipated that the user probably it'll be the customers picking up their meal and then just going and sitting down and eating and then leaving without a waitress service. That's the way the restaurant is set up?
That's correct.
Okay. And with respect to the apartments, these are 2-bedroom apartments as opposed to 3-bedroom apartments in the previous application.
That's correct. We had a more intense use proposed prior to this, and we kind of brought it down based on the recommendations of the TAC.
Okay, and on this property, there was a building previously which was a mixed-use building, correct?
That's correct.
And the building that we are proposing to construct is basically on the footprint of what was there before.
That's correct.
So we're not enlarging or making it any bigger than what was on that property prior to this application as far as the footprint.
That is correct.
Okay, and what is the approximate size of each of those apartments?
925, both apartments, 925 square feet.
Okay, and then the restaurant is also 925 square feet,
Uh,
minus the staircase.
Yes.
So actually, the restaurant's a little bit smaller. Okay, I have no further questions.
The occupancy in the apartments will be
Probably 4.
4.
Yes.
Anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Sharif?
Yes.
Sharif, can you raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last name, please?
Sure. Sharif Ali, AL1.
And you swear to the whole truth in this matter?
I do.
And again, we will accept you as an expert witness.
Thank you.
All right, Sharif, can you describe the subject property and what's there now, and then we'll go into what we're proposing?
So the subject property is known on the tax map sheet 20 as Lot 27 and Lot 97. And also is known with the post office as 268 Somerset Street. That's because the original house had a front door on Somerset. With the lot in question is a corner lot. You have James Street and you have Somerset, and you right at one of the corners there. So that is the lot. It's 2,500 square feet, 25 feet in width, 100 feet in depth. We meet the bulk requirements for the depth, but we are insufficient as far as the lot width within the zone. That is the neighborhood commercial zone. Requires 50 by 100, that's 5,000 square feet. So there's two existing bulk that is pre-existing with the lot. That is the lot width as well as the lot area. So there is also, historically there was a building there. That building was already over the front setback on, with the frontage on James, and 1 foot of the front setbacks from the right-of-way on Somerset. So we are pretty much using the same footprint, but we're not on top of the same footprint. So that's a correction for the record, because what we were asked to slip back the building and to avoid being over the right-of-way by 1/2 foot. So we had 3 foot of a side yard, that's existing condition too. So now we reduce that to 1.5. So rather than having 3, we have 1.5 and 1.5 away from the right-of-way on James, avoiding that being over the line. So with that said, we do have utilities, typical of the city of New Brunswick on James, on Somerset, and we are proposing to remove or abandon the existing utilities and putting brand new utilities on the street to accommodate the building. There's a parking area that historically been there. This parking area is going to be restricted for parking spaces for the residents, the second floor and the third floor. So with the
Sharif, before you go to the rest of the site improvements, the lot is a corner lot adjacent to the property on the other side of Somerset Street. There is an existing building, is there not?
Yes,
So there is, again, no other opportunity to acquire any additional land to make this lot bigger.
that is correct.
And as a matter of fact, the adjacent building is almost on the property line on the other side.
That is correct, and again, it's 25 feet in width, so it also has a problem as far as the lot width and the lot area.
Okay, and can you you indicated that we do have a lot area variance and we have a lot frontage variance on Somerset Street. Obviously, we meet the frontage on James Street. Are there any other bulk variances associated with this application?
No, we don't need the front setbacks at all.
Not the setbacks, frontage.
The frontage, yes, we do.
Yeah.
So on James, we meet the frontage, and on Somerset, we have 25 feet, where 50 feet is required.
Okay, and are there other bulk variances that we are seeking in conjunction with this application?
Yes, so beside the existing bulk variance that I indicated, we do have 3 more violations. The building coverage within the zone is 40%, a little bit over, 47.5. The impervious coverage, we have 90% in the zone. We're about 1% over, so we have 91%. And as far as the floor area ratio, given the fact that now we're going to have 8-foot basement that will be rolled into the floor area ratio, what's required is 1. And we have we're a little bit over than that by 1.12. So 1,200 more than what is required.
Okay, now with respect to the bulk variances, forget the floor area ratio, all of the other bulk variances were actually in effect and in place with the previous building.
That is correct. And also the number of stories.
Right.
Which required 40 and 3 stories, and that's what we have. We have 34 and 3 stories. So that's more than 22.
Okay. Now, again, with this application, we had numerous meetings with staff concerning some of the things to address the outside of the property. We had some limited opportunities to make some improvements from what were there before. Can you indicate to the board, other than providing 4 parking spaces, what else is going on around that building?
So beside kicking the building back and repaving and restriping the area in the back to allow for 4 spaces, we also we have 2 openings for the the driveway for the 4 spaces. We also added 3 trees along the frontage beside the improved 4 trees, 1, 2, 3, 4. Beside that, we have all new utilities, and any repairs to be done to the existing sidewalks will be part of this application.
Okay. Are we doing any screening or fencing to segregate this property from the adjoining neighbors?
Yes, we added a solid fence along the 4 parking spaces for screening purposes, yes.
Okay. Are we providing any exterior lighting for the parking?
Yes, part of this application, and for safety concern, we have exterior lighting that will be provided for the spaces, and I believe one of the items in the engineering report that it's insufficient, that we'll be looking into that and we'll be adding more lights if it's required.
Okay. Now, how is refuse being handled on this application?
pretty similar to the other application. We have an enclosed area right next to the building that will have the same, the walls will have the same materials as the building. And within there, within that area, within that trash enclosure area, we'll have about 8 cans for the apartments as well as the retail or the restaurant.
So a little bit different from the previous application, all of the cans will be in a combined area for the garbage in this.
That is correct, and will be managed by the building manager or the store manager. And with this application, we only about 10 feet, I would say 30 feet away from the curb line and the pickup by the curb. Unlike the other application, it's more than 100 feet.
Okay, and is there an ability in this application, as opposed to the previous application, for delivery vehicles to be able to load and unload at this property?
Yes, so we, since we have the 4 spaces on site, so we took advantage of the area in front of the spaces along the street, and we are providing a loading area that will be managed by the store and the building manager.
So that a delivery truck can park or pull up in front of the parking spaces?
Yes.
And as indicated, with similar use as the previous application, the delivery vehicle is going to be there for a few minutes. They'll pull up in front of the parking spaces, make the deliveries, and then leave. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're talking about 2 to 5 minutes. Basically.
Okay. And there is a rear entrance from the building to the parking area for deliveries and for pickups?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Now, again, in this application, although we didn't have as many meetings with the city, we did have meetings with the city and their staff, and reports were generated in conjunction with this application.
Yes.
And those reports specifically are a July 19th, 2018 report by Bignell Planning Consultants, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the comments and plan review comments, if there's any request to make any modifications or changes to the plan, you will make those changes?
Absolutely.
Okay, and then there is also the DNR report, which was dated also Friday, July 20th, 2018. And there were a couple of comments about perhaps a removal of the tree and a few other, providing curb stops and other things, and we can make those changes. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can put the curb stops, and as far as the tree, we can we can protect the tree by some kind of steel guard around the tree, or we can remove the tree.
Okay. And all of the other modifications requested by Mr. Carley can be made?
Yes.
And in making all of those changes, again, they do not significantly alter the plan that is being reviewed by the board this evening?
Not at all.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
You talked about the loading zone. Is that in the parking lot itself, or is it on the street?
That will be on the street.
Did you already go to the city to get permission for the loading zone?
That will be part of this application, that will be the information.
I don't know how we would approve a loading zone that blocks other parking spaces. I don't see that happening.
It's still the ability to at least have the vehicle pull, even if it's not a designated loading zone, Mr. Patterson, it still is an area which is immediately accessible to the building for a vehicle to pull up and make deliveries for the few moments that it's there. And quite frankly, perhaps if they're a box or a van, they can even pull into a parking space if one is available, even though those parking spaces, based on the discussion with the client, will in fact be designated and assigned for the apartment dwellers and not for the users of the restaurant.
The board can take that into consideration. I mean, blocking a driveway, I don't think it's going to be considered a loading zone because they're not the only business in the area out there. I mean, it is primarily a residential area, but across the street, I believe, is where McCormick's Tavern used to be. Might be one or two other things out there. It's primarily residential, but you know, there could be, yeah. Patrick's is out there. So if it's a loading zone, it's a loading zone for anybody, and not just their business. But again, it's a city, truck drivers usually figure something out, but I don't know if you saw the story yesterday, Mark and I were talking about it. We were having dinner tonight in Florida where a guy got shot arguing over a parking space and so forth. So people do get sensitive about parking spaces. This is in Florida
It's a
though.
handicap parking.
Right, Pete? Is it in Florida?
Where I am in Florida, I haven't gotten into any fights over parking spaces.
Somebody have hold of a handicap.
They're too old down there.
The next question I have is garbage. It's totally different than Easton Avenue. They don't get picked up every day, correct?
Now, it's not picked up on a daily basis out there.
So what kind of garbage container are you gonna have? If it's a restaurant, twice a week, I mean, you can't just have a regular garbage can. You're gonna have a 3 to 5 foot dumpster there, and then it's gotta be privately picked up.
If we need that much, I don't have a problem doing that. My client wouldn't have a problem if that's what's necessary. Again, it's not a big restaurant. We'll have to figure that out as we find out who the user is. But if there's a need, I think there's sufficient area, Mr. Ali, whether it's garbage can or to put a small roll-out dumpster, we can put it there.
We could do that.
And who will be responsible to take the tenants' garbage to the curb?
Actually, my client who owns the building will be responsible to making sure that the garbage gets out, whether he works with the current commercial tenant to get the garbage out or whether he does it himself. It's his responsibility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Stolen.
Can you raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last name?
Elizabeth Dolan, D-O-L-A-N.
And you swear to the whole truth of this matter?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Ms. Stolen. Okay. Ms. Dolan, as I indicated in my opening, this site has some similarities to the previous application, but there's also some differences. From a parking perspective, is there a difference in the character of the neighborhood and a difference with respect to this application as opposed to the previous application?
Sure. This is, as has been discussed through the course of this application, a little bit more residential area. And the applicant is proposing two-bedroom units with 4 parking spaces on site designated for the residents. The balance of the parking requirement would be 7 spaces for the restaurant occupancy. So we're not providing that, but again, the restaurant will be a small, primarily takeout type of use, catering to the residents and employees of the area. Not unlike, I think it's JB's Market just down the road, and there's a pizza place, a couple other similar convenience type facilities where you can purchase food and beverages without having specific parking spaces. So, and in this location, there is the permit parking for the residents, but in this case, we're looking to accommodate the parking demands of the residents completely on site.
And with respect to, and again, we don't have a user, but given the nature of businesses and you've studied them, restaurants, is it fair to assume that even with this type of restaurant, besides the customer coming in to take out, that in all likelihood, whoever the operators will also be providing deliveries as almost every restaurant in the inner city does?
They very well provide deliveries, and I think we talked too about apps that allow people to order and then go and pick up and have even less wait time. So there's a lot of that convenience type of stuff built in. But again, given the setting of this property, it's still in downtown in Brunswick, we would be expecting pedestrian activity, bicycling, and a lesser amount of vehicular trips to this restaurant area.
And in your opinion, is there any negative impact at all on the neighborhood in not having the commercial parking spaces?
No, again, I would say that this is a walkable area. There's other uses within just a couple of blocks of this site that are similar retail establishments and restaurants that do not provide parking. and we are rebuilding a site that has historically been occupied with a building.
Thank you, no further questions.
Any other questions?
You're talking about parking permits here now. The old building, I believe there was a law office and just a house on top of it, okay? How many parking permits did they have, and then what is the new requirement that they'll have? And, because you're adding more to this right now, into this
Well, they have a
space.
small parking area that we are expanding to provide 4 designated and appropriately sized parking stalls. So those, we are required for by the residential site improvement standards for the 2 apartments, and that's what we're providing. So the residential parking requirement is fulfilled on site with this redevelopment. I don't know historically what kind of permits they may have had, but in this case, the residents would in all likelihood not require permits because they'd have the parking on
So
the
then would
property.
you be willing to give them up?
Pardon me?
Would you be willing to give up the parking permits so that, they can't get them?
I think there would not be a need. The owner is entitled to a permit also, and I believe, and I think that permit, we'd still like to have it. I don't think we need the residential parking permits.
Well, I believe if he owns multiple buildings in New Brunswick, he get a parking permit that'll have 10 spaces or whatever. Oh, I don't even think they can go out anymore. I think it's all digitalized now.
They'd be eligible for, depending on where persons had their cars registered, up to 3 residential permits per unit, I believe, plus visitor passes. So, yeah, that's,
So would they'd be willing to give up the?
I think it's one visitor pass per building, so they could get 7, I think.
We're willing to give up the resident passes. We still like the ability to have visitor passes in case there's visitors, but
I don't think it works that way.
No, I don't think you could have,
all right, well, we can eliminate all of them if we need to, if that's the board's desire. Because again, we do have on-site parking, and in this area, probably the tenants may not even have 2 cars, so they can accommodate the visitor parking even on-site. So,
But then where does the manager or whatever restaurant park?
what is
Is
the
he
delivery
gonna walk
driver
there
too?
too?
Yeah, exactly. It's,
you know,
And your client is looking for,
well, we have to swear him in.
Raise your right hand, state your name, spell your name for,
Spell your last name for record. B-O-D-U-R?
and you sort of refuse this matter.
Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
Okay, this street, it's not that busy street. This street has a lot of parking spaces. I mean, I never seen, I bought this building 2 years ago. And I've been in and out from there. And there was a lot of parking space available in this street. And I mean, I don't think there should be any kind of parking problem because this is most likely maybe 90% will be pick up and to go. You know, like the pizzeria down the block, it's not right across from me, but it's a little bit down the block. He's doing his 90% of the sales from delivery. He doesn't have anybody staying inside the building, you know, like,
my memory serves me right. There's a auto place or something, repair shop for tires or something, and they're constantly parking cars and double parking on all over that street. So, you're
On
saying-
James Street you're talking about?
I believe so, isn't it?
it's on Florence.
Yeah.
Oh, is it the next
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the street over, I think.
I was there today, and, yeah.
They mix and match over
Yeah.
there. Okay.
oh, this block is empty block. You know, it's,
Yeah. And
Yeah.
all the board members are familiar with New Brunswick. There isn't an empty block in New Brunswick. This is not Easton Avenue, College area or by the hospital, but it is all resident permit parking. So if you're not a resident, you don't have a permit, you're subject to enforcement action against you. You know, if you have all these, what are they, Uber Eats or whoever, picking up all the deliveries, where do they park and so forth. Yeah, they're probably in and out, and yeah, they probably kind of get away with it and so forth. But it's, for the board to consider if it's all these college students and other residents calling up for deliveries, that delivery cars got to park someplace, run in. Things aren't always ready exactly when they say. We don't even know what kind of restaurant it's going to be. Yeah, it's for the board to weigh that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Mr. O'Brien?
If I could just raise your right hand and state your name, spell your last name for the record.
Kevin O'Brien, O-B-R-I-E-N.
And you swear to tell the truth in this matter?
I do. And Madam Chair, my license status has not changed since my last appearance before this board.
It's good to hear.
It is indeed.
Next up, give us an answer.
You didn't get a text message in the last 20 minutes?
I'm not answering the phone.
Mr. O'Brien, can you review with the board again why we are here this evening, and then go through your analysis of what you, first of all, you're familiar with the site, you're familiar with the zoning ordinance of the City of New Brunswick, the master plan of the City of New Brunswick, and the municipal land use law, correct?
Yes, I am.
All right. Can you indicate to the board then why we are here, and then go through your planning analysis?
This application is for a D4 floor area ratio variance, as well as bulk and parking variances. This is for a mixed-use building on Somerset, which will include a restaurant, primarily takeout, as you've heard the testimony, and two-bedroom apartments. This is an allowed use in the C1 commercial zone. There are a number of unique aspects to this application. First is that a 1920s plus or minus building has been taken down already, and this is going to be replaced with a modern building that meets all safety, construction, and energy codes. This helps not only adjoining properties, but the city itself. This neighborhood consists of a number of non-conforming properties. The required lot area is 5,000 square feet. There are 26 properties on Somerset between Lotus and Alexander. Only 6 of those 26 properties comply with lot area. So 77% of the properties are non-conforming. That makes the bulk variances of the lot area, FAR, all much more difficult for those properties. The applicant is looking to rent to families in this location, primarily because of the convenient access to transportation and employment. And in this particular area, restaurants tend to be more of a takeout and delivery type rather than sit down, and that is shown in the number of seats that is being provided for the restaurant. The FAR variance is for 1.2 where 1.0 is allowed. That is a fairly de minimis exception from that variance requirement, and the proposed building is going to fit into the character of the neighborhood, which consists of 2.5-story and 3-story buildings. The master plan has a number of passages that talk about this kind of development, starting with the goals on page 13, which talks about provision of unique, attractive, and high-quality residential areas that attract new residents and a wide range of housing and lifestyle choices. Also a goal, increased residential land usage through infill at housing densities and types appropriate to the character of existing neighborhoods. And under specific recommendations on page 57, there should be a variety of housing choices that address neighborhood housing needs. And then lastly, create mixed-use residential neighborhoods that provide convenient, functional, and attractive housing at a variety of price points. And I believe this application does meet those goals by providing a convenient, functional, and attractive mixed-use building in a location near schools, employment, and services. As a use variance, we've got to discuss the goals of the land use law to establish special reasons. And among the goals that this application meets are: A, encourage municipal action to guide the appropriate use or development of all lands in the state in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Item B, to secure safety. Item G, provide sufficient space and appropriate locations for a number of uses. And I, promote a desirable visual environment. And I believe this application does meet those goals by providing a new and safe mixed-use building in a mixed-use neighborhood. In terms of negative impact, I don't see any negative impact. They are reusing the foundation that was there before, with the exception of pushing it out of the right-of-way and reseeding the building. In fact, I think that there's a positive impact, and no offense is meant towards our fine attorneys in this room, but the fact that an attorney's office is being removed from this location may be seen as a public benefit for all the citizens of New Brunswick.
Are you going to cross-examine him, Marvin?
Accepting our fine attorneys in this room, as I said.
Mr. O'Brien, in preparing your testimony, we sat down and reviewed everything. Did you have an opportunity to go through Google Earth, and did you get an opportunity to view the building that was there before it was demolished?
Yes.
And can you describe to the board what that building looked like before?
Awful. It was boarded up. It was in disrepair. There were holes in it. It was just awful. Just awful. It was an eyesore.
Okay. And again, in furtherance of your testimony, the removal of that building and the replacement of it by this building would be an enhancement?
Yes, it would. And it would be, the proposed building would be in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, unlike what was there.
Okay. And finally, can you indicate to the board what your conclusions are with respect to this application?
Yes, the FAR T4 variance for floor area ratio relies upon an argument in the planning handbook written by Mr. Cox, and his statement is that D4 variance has to show that the site will accommodate the problems associated with a floor area larger than that permitted by the ordinance. And because of the substandard size of this lot, as well as 77% of the other lots in this area, this does accommodate those problems by reusing that foundation, not expanding any of those variances that were in existence before, and reducing the one for the front yard. In addition to that, a use variance has to show you that there are unique characteristics, which I've listed, that we meet the special reasons, which I've done by promoting the various goals of the land use law, and then lastly, that we can be reconciled with the master plan, which talks about a variety of residential uses for various types of families and different price points, and we meet those goals. I believe we meet the negative criteria. I can't see any negative impact upon the neighborhood, and I would conclude that I believe that this application can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantial impairment to the zone plan and the zoning ordinance. I would welcome any questions, Madam Chair.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just, if I may, just a quick question for the architect. This particular neighborhood, much more so than the Easton Avenue neighborhood, is much more of a residential kind of neighborhood. And again, we see a modern sort of cube sort of building that's proposed with a lot of glass. So the board might want to hear just some testimony on what the building's going to look like, how it's going to fit into the other residential buildings on the street, because I think this is a much more sensitive situation than in Easton.
Well, the building is contemporary in style. We had a much more traditional building, and it was brought up in the TSC to make it a little bit more attractive. And the client was leaning towards also going into a contemporary direction, so that's where we went. The property is in a residential area. It is only a couple of blocks though from RWJ and towards Easton Avenue, so there are a lot more contemporary architecture, maybe 1 or 2 blocks away from this lot. So it's not completely out of character with the area. The building is also, I did see there's some comments about not using stucco. and there is stucco right now, so we could actually revise that into cement fiber paneling or boards, so that would satisfy that. But the front facade of the building has some metal panels all around. There's some wood siding, but it would be a contemporary wood siding, not the traditional. And there is a very few accented stucco areas, and the numbers of the building is right on top of the door. The side would have a lot more stucco here, and that's the part that we might have to revise into cement fiber boards or panels. There is sort of a masonry bottom. The first floor is a split face masonry or a veneer, and doors or storefront glass for the restaurant facing that. We did have quite a big area of glass from the living area from on the corner to utilize the corner property nature.
Do you have any pictures that you could show us?
We didn't do a rendering for this one, sorry.
That would have been helpful.
I got a feeling we're probably coming back for this one also. We're in the same situation. If the board wants us to bring a rendering so they get a better sense or feel of it, we'd be happy to do that.
That would be very helpful to us.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, just not only the image of what this building will look like, but what it will look like in the context of the other buildings that are around it. Because I think particularly this one, it's really got to fit in.
Okay.
Well.
Can you do that for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Quick question, Mr. Lantry. At the TAC meetings, we talked about that underground storage tank.
Gone.
Gone?
It's gone.
Everything's, it wasn't leaking?
We did it with all the appropriate permits and everything is gone.
Okay, thank you.
Is that your presentation?
That's my presentation. I guess we can open it to the public. And then in this instance, since I'm going to present additional testimony, I'll defer my summation until the next hearing.
Okay. At this time, we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to speak to this application? Okay. Yes. Oh, come forward, please. Come forward.
Can you raise your right hand, state your name, spell your last name for me, please?
Sandra Worley, W-E-H-R-L-E.
H-R-L-E, and do you swear to the whole truth in this matter?
I'm sorry.
Do you swear to the whole truth in this matter?
Yes. As a resident on Somerset Street, right across the street from where this building will be constructed, we have a big, big parking problem. And I know what the gentlemen have said about parking, and it'll be taken care of. But if we have a restaurant that people are trying to come in and take out food and looking for parking spaces and everything, any of us who have driveways are going to have our driveways blocked. There are no actual parking, excuse me, enough parking spaces for the people who live in our neighborhood. People have to park blocks away from where they live. So my concern is exactly that. You know, this parking problem in our neighborhood is terrible. And that's why we have these permits and everything. And we have to go through all this procedure of trying to get enough parking space for ourselves. And I just have misgivings about this whole project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here from the public who would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, then we'll close the public portion of the meeting.
I would ask that this matter now be carried to August 27th, at which time we will present additional testimony. I would also grant to the board an extension of time within which to act through September 30th.
Okay.
Thank you.
So then we will continue this application on August 27th. So for anybody here from the public, if you want to come back on the 27th, because there will be more testimony. So then we would open it up to the public again, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other matters of interest to the public, huh? We're done. Other matters of interest to the public? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good.